Namaste. Welcome to the Ilongga Yogi podcast. My name is Kate and I'm from Iloilo. I'm a certified yoga instructor and I have a studio here as well. I share content on yoga, mindfulness, fitness, mental health, self-care, and wellness. For today's episode, I will be sharing with you how to find happiness without success. Before we get into it, I want to let you know that I teach classes both at my studio and online. If you're interested in taking a class with me, just head on over to ilonggayogi.com/bodyloveyogailoilo for the schedule and rates and to book as well. So I've been looking forward to talking about this topic for quite a while already. And I feel like I've always wanted to do this in order for me to speak up for those who have felt so much pressure to the point of depression or burnout. So I think that's very important for me to explain because I'm not really talking about those who have felt like they've been pressured but has led them to their own greatness. This is more for the people who have felt like it has led to their deterioration or it has led to them feeling worse than ever in their whole life. So this is more for those who are kind of like me, who experienced so much pressure growing up, thinking that they had to follow this career, and in the end just leaving them completely drained, completely exhausted, and just never happy, like completely unhappy with where they are in their life, even after they've achieved what they thought they needed to achieve. So this is for them. And then this is also for me to hopefully reach out to the people who attach their value, worth, or happiness with success. So let's say if you're somebody who has been an overachiever all your life and then suddenly you've achieved what you thought you really needed to achieve, but you just still feel unhappy, you feel like something is missing, you feel lost, you feel completely confused why you feel that way or why you're not feeling the way you thought you should feel. So this is kind of for you too, for anyone who has always, again, equalized their worth, their value, their happiness with success, with awards, with achievements, with all of that stuff. And lastly, this is also for more of the older generation or more of the people out there who still believe in what our parents have always believed in, that you only can follow this path to success. And if you choose to not follow that path, you're basically going to fail. So I hope that through this episode, I can begin to, in a way, expand people's mindset on what success can look like, and that everyone has their own path in life. And I think that it's very important that we are able to express that and choose that freely and to make mistakes along the way, and that we start to support others for that choice. You know, it's not going to be a perfect path. And I know that our parents, or for those out there, I know that we have the best intentions in mind, but sometimes it can harm the people in our lives that we love the most. So I know that this is probably a lot to ask for this one single episode, but these reasons have kind of been the driving force for me to actually do this episode like now. So hopefully I'll be able to accomplish that in this podcast episode. All right. So I wanted to talk about my own personal journey first, just a little bit of how I experienced all of this when I was young and why I'm where I am now, because I think that's a huge piece to my story. And just like what I mentioned earlier, I was also once a kid who was an overachiever. I have always been an overachiever since I was really young in grade school. And I think that if you're not from the Philippines, you wouldn't understand how competitive schools are here. So even in your class alone, it can get very competitive. So that was kind of my way of trying to be accepted or trying to seek attention, I guess, in a way, because I grew up away from my parents, away from my mom and my dad. So probably that's how I felt like I can be seen or be appreciated or be loved, is to be number one in class or to do my absolute best at class. So you can imagine me as a really, really young kid, just like studying so hard already. Like I don't used to play with other kids that much because I had like a strict schedule that I needed to follow when I was like, in first grade, second grade. So it was pretty intense. And since I was away from my mom, this was kind of our love language when I was younger, because I could always sense how happy it made my mom feel every time I achieved something. And so it was just kind of a cycle that I kept going through again and again, like wanting her to be happy for me and like wanting her love, her affection, her attention. And so this is how I always did it. And so also we have been fed this idea that there's no other option except for being one. Even if I had the highest score ever, like I had a 99 over 100, for example, my mom would always ask me, did anyone get 100? So it's like, it's never enough. And I know that for them, like for my mom, that's how she is, that's how she loves. And most likely if you grew up in a Filipino household with parents like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So having that when I was younger, it just made me suffer when I was in high school already. Because for me, I remember when I look back, high school was like the most important time of my life, because that was going to determine where I was going to go for college. And like college to me was a huge deal. So I remember in high school, I really poured my all out. I poured my heart out into my studies, making sure that I was always going to be number one, making sure that I was always going to be on top. Like I did everything I could. And that was already like too much to ask someone who is going through changes, because that was like our teenage years. That was my teenage years. And I remember when I was in high school, this was when I was diagnosed with clinical depression, and I had to take antidepressants. So it was like a lot that I was dealing with. And so I remember I graduated, right? We all graduated. And then I graduated basically like second or salutatorian. And I remember just crying. I cried so much. I was so brokenhearted. I felt like my world just shattered. I was that depressed, like really disappointed and frustrated in myself that happened. I did not feel proud of myself at all that I graduated as kind of second place. And there's no hate towards the one that graduated first in a way, or valedictorian. But of course, I just felt like I was a failure. Like I failed myself so much because I gave my all. And from that moment, when I came into college, I was just tired. I was done. Like I told myself, I am not gonna put myself through that anymore. And looking back, that was probably just the pain and the heartache that I went through, because I gave everything and then in return didn't get what I wanted. Maybe that was like already like it was a good decision, but at that time I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that I was actually doing something more than that, like in a way healing myself for all of that experience, but also giving myself a chance to just breathe and relax a little bit, because I was just so hung up on it. I was just so stressed about it. So, I went into college already burnt out, which is like crazy to even think that can happen to someone. And then add on to that, I know that my story is very different from probably other people's story, because this is coming from somebody who does live in a third world country. And I understand that for many other people, maybe for you who's listening, you don't always have that option. Like you needed to be number one in order for you to get somewhere, right? But this is also me telling you that I was raised by a single mom, a mom that had to work 2 to 3 jobs, work at 2 to 3 hospitals, just so that she can support the whole family and the extended family, not just me. Even if I am her only child, she had to support like so many people, so many of us. And I've seen how it affected my mom. I'm sharing here with you my POV as someone who had to deal with that pressure with being an overachiever and just draining myself out of everything. But also I'm talking to you as someone who sees my mom and knows that she did everything she could to take her family out of poverty, extreme poverty, just so that we can all have a comfortable life, working hard and taking the usual path that Filipinos are told to take, and then experiencing how she was always absent, experiencing how she was never really there, and like losing that relationship with her. I'm also on that side. And I know that before, in older generations, relationships and love and all that kind of stuff doesn't really matter, but slowly we're starting to realize that actually it does matter, because at the end of it all, especially after the pandemic and realizing how difficult it is to not be with people or how depressing it can be when you don't have any sort of regular interaction. I'm an introvert, so I love being alone. I love being at home, but it's very different when you know that you have people in your life who love you, who support you, who are there for you. And having my mom work so much, even until now, we have kind of lost each other along the way. And so this is like my POV as someone who has to deal with a family member who has tried to work so hard just to follow a certain path, just to get her family out of poverty, in which she has done that, but to the expense of a very, very important relationship, something that is way more important than money can ever buy. And then this is also from the POV of someone who had to deal with that pressure and feeling burnt out at such an early age, and now dealing with people around me who expect so much out of us, who still want us to follow a certain path or kind of judge us whenever we're not on a specific path that is typically accepted. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with all of this and why I want to talk about it even more. So just a quick break. Before I continue, let's talk about my juice brand, Daily Greens. So if you're a local in Iloilo City and you're looking for a healthy juice that doesn't have any added sugar or preservatives and is packed with nutrients, then you should try Daily Greens. With 2 flavors, I have healthy greens, which is mostly leafy greens, and carrots and veg, which is 50% carrots, and other vegetables and fruits, a lot sweeter than healthy greens. This juice is a lot more healthy than any of the juices sold on the market, especially when they tend to put more fruits just to help it taste better, but completely miss the point of being a nutritious and healthy drink. So they end up being pretty pricey too. Daily Greens make sure that you get the most out of a bottle, packing it with more vegetables than fruits and making it fresh daily, not to mention affordable for everyone. You can enjoy a bottle or 2 every single day, which is perfect if your goal is to get healthier in a more sustainable way. Because we want to ensure the best quality, I encourage you to pre-order at least a day before, and you can either pick it up at my studio, Body Love Yoga Studio in Mandurriao, or have it delivered straight to you via Maxim or Grab. This is your sign to kickstart your journey to healing your body and mind with Daily Greens. So now that you understand and kind of see where I'm coming from, see my story, I want to talk about a few of the lessons that I have learned that I want to share with you. So the first one is understand what is the real reason behind your choices in life. Is it to please your parents? Is it because you seek their acceptance and approval? Is it because you do not feel good about yourself or you don't feel good enough? Or are you trying to prove something? Is it out of fear or is it out of love? Like you truly love what you're trying to do, what you want to do. So this is the first thing that I wanted to touch on because as I said earlier, I knew that when I was younger, in order for me to feel like I'm accepted, to feel like I'm good enough for my family or for the people around me is by being number one or being in the top, right? And now that I'm older and I look back and I see that, I know that that was not and never going to be sustainable, because the reason that drove me to do the things that I did when I was younger and eventually drove me to burnout and just feeling so tired and eventually feeling depressed was a very toxic thing to hold on to. You know, I wanted acceptance. I wanted approval. I felt like I wasn't good enough. And that will never bring you the sense of peace or contentment, because you'll realize that no matter what you do, no matter what you pursue, you will never feel good enough. Like a prize or an achievement or a certain amount of money can never fix that problem with you, because the only way that you can feel that you are good enough is if you actually do inner work. You start to look into yourself and figure that out within yourself without money, without awards. You don't need that in order for you to look at yourself and look within and understand, what are you truly looking for? Like, what is the reason behind the choices you make? If you don't know what your reason is, or if your reason, again, is one of the things that I mentioned, you don't feel like you're loved, you don't feel like you're good enough, you feel like you're a bad person, so you need to do this in order for you to be a good person or to change your reputation, then it will lead you nowhere. You'll realize that the moment you achieve whatever you were trying to achieve, the moment you have found what you were chasing for, you'll still feel the same way. You'll still feel like that emptiness within you. The next lesson that I wanted to talk about is, how can you connect with your purpose? And can you do that? Ask yourself, what is your purpose? I feel like we're not really taught that. We're not really taught that here, especially in the Filipino household. That's not really something we talk about over dinner. It's a very weird thing to ask, but this is something that, to me, I believe we're all sent into this world for a particular purpose. And this purpose is meant to bring us happiness. It's meant to make us feel fulfilled and at peace. This is different from putting on the responsibility of being the breadwinner of your whole family. This is completely different. To me, that's more of an effect. It should be more of an effect the moment you start to follow what you really love, what you really believe in, know that you can do and pursue wholeheartedly. And I know that I know that a lot of people will tell me a lot of shit. I was hesitant to say a bad word, but you get what I'm saying? Like, we get a lot of shit because we want to pursue what we love, because we want to pursue this and that and everything. And when I've met a lot of people, especially who are also yoga teachers, who have other jobs, who they've had like a full-time job in the past. And there are some of them that say that they've been doing that for the longest time, and they wish that they should have switch careers earlier in their life, so that they won't feel so miserable, they won't feel so tired all the time. And that's what I'm also trying to say here. What is your purpose? Can we give each other the time and the space we need in order for us to figure that out a little bit without putting too much pressure on each other? We have always had this belief that our kids have to take care of their parents when they grow older, but that shouldn't be completely the case. We shouldn't put all of that on our kids. I think that it's important for us to realize that at the end of the day, we need to look out for ourselves, because there's so much toxicity that comes with that. There's a lot of baggage that comes with that. Baggage that really destroys relationships sometimes, that makes relationships very unhealthy, to the point that sometimes we leave this world with a lot of regret and guilt because we weren't able to love our family members as much as we wanted to, because there was just so much unspoken tension because of the pressure that we have assumed for our kids or for our family members or all of that stuff. It's just a lot. It's very heavy to ask someone to take care of you if they feel they're not ready for that, right? It has to come from them. And so what's your purpose? Maybe your purpose is really helping your family, and that's something that you are really, really passionate about. And again, that's why I wanted to clear that out in the beginning, that if that's you, then I'm talking about people who feel like they can't handle that responsibility because it's not their choice, because they know that's not their purpose, but they feel like that is what is expected of them. And that's a completely different meaning. So again, connect with your purpose, because once you understand what your purpose is, not what your family's purpose is or what your family's dream for you is, that's when you start to do what you're good at, and you start to work harder naturally because you believe in it, you believe in yourself. It's not going to be easy, but you know that this is what you want to do. This is what you will do for the rest of your life, or for the time being that that you're willing to do, to give it. And once it's a deeper purpose and then a higher purpose, you're able to serve your happiness and serve others. And that's when you know that you're doing exactly what you need to do. That's very important, that you serve your happiness equally, equal to how you serve others. That's very important here. And I want you to remember that. So yes, maybe it's helping your family. Maybe it's pursuing a career, becoming a doctor, or becoming maybe even just a teacher. I'm not saying just a teacher because I'm a teacher. Maybe it's being a teacher. Maybe it's having your own business. As long as what you're doing is serving your happiness and also serving the happiness of others, serving the happiness of your family too, then that's when you are aligned and you're doing what you should be doing. And if you're not, then that's something that you need to look into. The next one is, what matters most to you? Ask yourself, what matters most to you? Is it really medals, certificates? Is it awards? Is it achievements? Is it having a certain amount in your bank account or earning a certain amount? Is that what will bring you fulfillment? Or is it relationships? Is it your family? Because for me, I've always asked myself, and again, like I said earlier, I've been on the side where I see my mom, who has turned her whole life around because she works so hard. And yes, she has given me a good life. Yes, that's great. But again, there comes an expense. There comes a consequence. And that consequence is that I never had my mom around. It's so hard for me to be close with her. Like, this is one of the reasons why, I'm not saying that my mom is the reason. I'm just saying that because of that absence, it does have an effect on people, right? Especially on a young kid when I was younger. And because of that, I have dealt with so much just emotional baggage. A lot of things that I'm still dealing with today that you know of if you listen to my other episodes, right? If you follow my content, that I just deal with depression, with anxiety, just a lot of issues emotionally and mentally. There's this feeling within me that's just insecure and just unstable. Just because I grew up with my parents not around, because of course I know that for them, their way of showing me love is to give me the best that they can by working hard. But again, that comes with being absent and not being around. And that's painful. And from that experience, I realized that, what I will value now is not money, because my mom has shown that she does have that now. She has that financial security, right? But it never gave me true happiness. It never made me feel fulfilled. It never made me feel happy, right? What makes me happy is being with my family. It's being with the people I love and having a close connection with them, a deep connection with them. It's the love that we share and being able to have that no matter what happens in our life. If one day comes and we lose everything, What matters most to me is that we still have each other. We could lose everything. I've always told myself, a phone can come and go, money will come and go, a house will come and go. Never attach yourself to your belongings. This house that I'm in right now, this could be gone anytime. No matter what I do to hold on to it, it could be gone at any moment. What matters to me is the people within the house, right? That we're all okay, we're all safe, we love each other, we're there for each other, and we have a deep connection with one another. So from there, asking myself these questions at a young age, I already knew what matters to me most is to be with my family. It's to be present no matter what, especially during the hard times. I want to be there for them. And if that means that I will be more present here and maybe not be as financially secure as I would love to, I will accept that if that's the case. It doesn't have to be, but if that's the case, I would rather have that because that's what matters to me most. So ask yourself, what matters to you most? At the end of the day, is it having a title? Is that what matters to you just because you want your family to be proud, but you necessarily are suffering? Is that what matters to you? Or is it, again, your relationships? Is it the love that you share with the people around you? What matters to you most? The next thing is to let go of what you cannot control. So I think that, especially in a Filipino household, there's this idea that we want to control the people that we love, thinking that that's love, but that's a toxic kind of love. That you can never control anyone. You can never change someone. You can never change their decisions. You can encourage them. You can support them. You can advise them. But at the end of the day, that's their decision and you cannot take it personally. Never, never, never take it personally. Because what makes them happy is their decision. What makes you happy could be completely different. And so we cannot control people's choices. And we should not control people's path. We should not dictate what path they should take unless they ask you to, or unless they actually show you that I really need your support. What do you think should I do? Because that even alone is a little tricky because along the way, maybe they'll blame you, maybe you'll blame each other, all of these different things, So it's just better to allow people to make their own decisions, to live their own life, to not dabble too much, to set boundaries and realize that this will just lead to frustration if I try to control them, if I try to make them decide what my decision is and agree to that all the time. It's just way better if you allow them and give them their space. Let them make mistakes. That's part of life. Let them make mistakes. Let them fail because that's where they can learn the most. That's where they grow the most. So do not control other people and do not choose a path for others. Allow them to choose it for themselves. Allow them to lead their own path. Next, why are you attaching your happiness or worth to titles? To a certain definition of success. Why? When I was younger, I always felt like that is what will make me accepted. This is what will make me better than everyone else. But it isn't. It isn't. Because even though people saw me as very, someone who studies really hard, someone who's smart in the sense of, just the grades and all of that. But I know that I'm not 100% smart. I'm normal. When I started to realize that chasing after that is actually really exhausting, that's the time when I kind of asked myself, why? Why do I have to chase after that? Why am I attaching my happiness to that when that's never going to bring me happiness? So ask yourself just a very simple question, why? Why are you doing it? And just keep asking yourself why again once you answer it. Why are you attaching your happiness or worth to a specific definition of success? Because I want to be accepted. I want my mom to be proud. Why do you want them to be proud? So that they love me. Why do you want them to love me? Because I never felt that they loved me enough when I was younger. why do you feel that way? And just keep asking yourself that until you finally understand this is why. And you realize that actually, if it's just love that we're talking about, I can find that within myself. I can learn and teach myself to love myself. I can heal that wound in me now, now that I'm older, and then start to find happiness from there. It shouldn't be, I'll achieve this and then find happiness. It should always be, I'm gonna be happy now so that I can achieve whatever it is I want to achieve. It should be that way, not the other way around. So just ask yourself, why? Why are you attaching your worth, your value to happiness? Your happiness to titles, awards, achievements, all these things. Do they really matter at the end of it all? Next, are you afraid of failing? So maybe that could be one of your answers in the previous lesson that I talked about. Are you afraid of failing? Is that why you attach so much of your worth to these things? I remember the moment I told myself, I'm going to let go of trying to work so hard to the point where I am mentally not okay anymore, to the point where I feel like I am suffering physically and just unhappy and miserable. I'm going to let go of that now because I would rather fail than force myself down that path until it gets really, really dark that there's no turning back anymore, If I force myself down that road, I probably wouldn't even be here anymore. And there are people who have felt that way. There are people who have done that. You know what I'm talking about. And it's unfair. It's really unnecessary, So that's my point, that I would rather fail 1,000,000 times than force myself to achieve something to the expense of being completely miserable, to the expense of my own life, my own health, my own well-being. So it's like, I don't care anymore. When I after that whole thing in high school, I just said, I don't care anymore. I even told that to my mom, and I know that probably made her feel bad or, made it feel sad, because college is actually more important than high school when you think about it, right? But I just had nothing else to give anymore because I was so drained. And I wish, when I'm looking back now, I just wish that because I was able to have fun and just be a kid, I wish I just did that. I wish I just enjoyed myself and just allowed myself to have fun, because now that I'm an adult, I'm kind of reliving that. Now that I'm an adult, I feel too tired to do different things, that I would just rather be a kid and just lounge and do nothing, and be carefree. But of course, that's not how it's supposed to be. So when I was younger, if only I had that opportunity to be carefree and enjoy myself and have fun, and if only I had my family here, my mom here with me, maybe things would be different. Again, I'm not blaming my mom or anything, because again, I know that she did that for a purpose, for a reason, and she does it amazingly. But again, there are pros and cons to everything, and that was my con in this case. So there, I would rather now just let myself fail. I don't care anymore, because I am honestly more fulfilled in the little things that I do. I feel like I'm in a better mental space now, way better mental space now than ever before. And when the time comes that I get the opportunity and the blessing to also become a mom someday, I hope to inculcate these lessons to them too, and teach them that you don't have to be anything. You don't have to be number one, or you don't have to avoid failing forever. Allow yourself to fail. Just be yourself. I don't really care. I'd rather you be happy and okay than try so hard to pass this exam, or to be a doctor, or to be whatever. I just want you to be you. If you want to be a doctor, great, but make sure that you're doing it because you want to. not because you feel like I am asking you to do that. Lastly, we always put off our own needs thinking we have time, but we don't have time. We don't have time. And if you started to realize this more, would you still do what you're doing now? Or would you go after what brings you more contentment and happiness? I've always told people around me who have felt miserable in what they're doing, I just kind of always remind them that, you don't have time. So with the time that you have here, what are you going to do with that? Are you still going to do this to yourself? And you remember that you can make a decision. You can choose for yourself. You can do what you want to do despite or regardless what other people say or think about you. Because at the beginning, that's what they'll all think. But in the end, when they see that you're actually thriving, that you're actually really happy, if they really truly love you, they'll support you, And that's what's more important. Like I just mentioned, I would rather have my kids feel that way than feel pressured every single day to live up to a certain expectation, because that's too much for them. I'd rather them feel like they are enough as they are confident in whatever career they choose. No matter what that is, they feel good and confident, they do a good job, and they are respecting themselves, respecting others. They are honoring their talents, their strengths, their weaknesses, and they're mentally okay. That's what's more important to me. So again, as a summary of everything that I've shared here today with you, this is all coming from someone who at a very young age was already an overachiever, only to prove myself, to make others happy, to mask my insecurities. And then in the end, I just became so burnt out. Right when my career was supposed to begin, I had nothing left in me. On the other side of that is I've seen firsthand how my mom has worked so hard to pursue just the only path that everyone thought was going to bring them success, right? Just so that she can lift her whole family out of poverty, bringing them to where they are, where we are today. But I've also seen how it can pull people apart, how it can leave us feeling like we've missed a life together. And there is so much regret and guilt in that. We've experienced that. We talk about it today. And we can't really go back and fix that anymore. It's something that you can't really change. You can work on it, but it's just not the same anymore. I realized that chasing after certain things, especially chasing after what the world views as successful, it's never going to bring me happiness and peace from within. Because the moment I achieve what I'm trying to achieve, there will still be that feeling of emptiness. There will still be that feeling of something's missing. I still don't feel as happy as I thought I would. I learned to fail and not be afraid to fail in the terms of what path to choose as your career, especially what is typically accepted. I would rather fail than force myself down a road that is dark and will leave me miserable, will leave me depressed, and could even harm my health, could even harm me in the long run. I learned to chase what brings me peace and to prioritize my well-being as I heal. It's more important that we find happiness now and then achieve whatever it is we want to achieve, do whatever it is we want to do, and allow ourselves to thrive in that, rather than work so hard now in hopes that we'll become happy at the end of the line, because that's something that we really don't have control over. And most of the time, happiness is really not there. It's always within you. It's always been with you all along. What matters to me most is valuing my relationships, deepening those connections, rather than accomplishing things that are pretty superficial or things that don't really matter. Medals, awards, titles, all of that. My worth and my value goes beyond all of that. I've learned that the more I'm able to pursue something that I believe in, the more that I can use this to help and support others. Again, every time I serve my happiness and serve others is me living my purpose. That means I'm aligned and I'm doing exactly what I should be doing. This is the best way to support others in a more positive and uplifting way rather than the toxic way that we've believed in, especially in a Filipino household. Lastly, if it weren't for this path I chose of serving others in a way that uses my strengths and honors my weaknesses, I probably wouldn't be this happy, this peaceful, and contented. And for this, I am so grateful, and I only wish the same for you. So thank you so much for listening to this podcast. Thank you so much for listening and sticking around throughout the whole episode. Check out my blog, ilonggayogi.com, for more similar content, and follow me on my socials at Ilongga Yogi. I'm wishing you peace in your body, peace in your mind, and peace in your heart wherever you are. Have a wonderful day and take care. Talk to you again soon.